Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast, powered by Advanced Takedown Tree Stands, episode number 195. Laura EAKIN, the Hunting Widow Podcast. Please support our sponsors as they make this show possible. Today's show is sponsored by Advanced Takedown Tree Stands, Covert Scouting Cameras, the Euro Hanger, and Morse's Sporting Goods. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hi, this is Dan Infold from HuntingBeast.com. You're about to listen to one of my favorite podcasts, Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
This is Laura Zara from Naked and Afraid, and you're about to listen to my favorite podcast, Big Buck Registry.
This is Scott Shaw, swamp hunter from Michigan. You're listening to my favorite podcast, the Big Buck Registry.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your good buddy Jay over here in Big Buck Registry Podcast Studios, and I'm chilling with my good friend Dusty Phillips. What's going on in Podcast Studios, Ohio?
Weather's getting nicer. The morel mushrooms are popping up.
Are they popping up right now?
That's what I'm understanding. I haven't been out to check.
Really?
That's the word on the street. But, yeah, everything's good. Been a little bit under the weather, but other than that, man, things are rocking and rolling.
That's exciting. I'm glad to hear the morels are up. The snow here in New Hampshire, although it's been extremely warm all week, I only have 1 foot in my front yard, about 12 feet across left. It's almost gone.
Very good.
Is that crazy? It might actually still be hanging around when turkey season starts.
No kidding. It's that deep, huh?
Yeah, it was. It's crazy. Just nuts, man.
That is crazy. Gotta love New Hampshire, right?
I love it most of the time.
Right.
Most of the time, I think it's a pretty cool place. Not all the time. Although this year, the coyote hunting kind of helped me pass the time by more so than ever before.
Yeah, you've been out anymore?
I haven't gone out hunting, checked the cameras a couple times. The bait site's settled down. I'm going to go pack up the blind and going to start doing some more calling around town and see what I can conjure up.
Right on, right on. Yeah, it won't be long, and the old Thunder Chickens will be hammering it.
That's right. It's coming right up. Coming right around the corner. It's we're 2 weeks away from youth season.
Who we got on today, Jay?
Today we have our good friend and fellow podcaster, Laura EAKIN. And Laura has a podcast called The Hunting Widow Podcast? Called The Hunting Widow Podcast. And we were actually featured in that article that Michelle Schuerman wrote for SHOT Show in the SHOT Show Daily Times newspaper. And Laura was featured in that same article. And we had kind of earmarked Laura as a person we'd like to talk to, a person of interest, so to speak, to have on this show. And we got a chance to talk with Laura in depth about how she started her show and why she decided to call it the Hunting Widow Podcast. And it's kind of like what you think of when you hear those words. It's the lady that stays at home when the hunter disappears in the woods for 3 or 4 months. That's what her intent was to bash husbands with her girlfriends about as they go hunting. Well, it turned into something completely different, and it turned into a kind of like almost like the lady version of this show, where they talk about hunting, and she interviews a lot of lady hunters. Kind of like we interview a lot of. Well, we don't just interview a bunch of hunters. We don't really discriminate, but it's a very interesting take in a completely unintentional format.
Yeah, right on. It's 95% women hunters that get on the show with her, and pretty unique, really.
It really is. So we're going to hear all about that from Laura EAKIN in a little while. I do want to let everybody know who's listening that we are still running the harness program. We've got a few coming in. So if you have more to donate, please email me, Jay@bigbuckregistry.com. If you need some Likewise, Jay or Dusty at bigbuckregistry.com, and as soon as we have a fresh shipment, we'll get some out to you. Let's turn to Jim Keller with the Deer News.
The Deer News this week is sponsored by the Euro Hanger. You don't have to spend big bucks to hang your big buck. Get yourself a Euro Hanger. Facebook.com/Eurohanger, EUROHANGER.
For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News. Our first story this week. Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks hires first female director of wildlife. This story was originally featured on the Deer and DeerHunting.com website and was written by Alan Clemens. The MWFP has chosen its first female director of wildlife resources with the hiring of Amy Blaylock, the agency announced. The announcement comes after the hiring of Russ Walsh as the Wildlife Executive Staff Officer. As the East Central Region WMA biologist, Blaylock has been responsible for all management activities in 11 wildlife management areas. During this time, she has also served as Wildlife Restoration Coordinator and, in this position, has been responsible for writing and managing grants that assist in funding the Wildlife Bureau. Blaylock, who has a bachelor's degree in forestry and wildlife management and a master's in wildlife science from Mississippi State, has been a biologist with the MWFP since 2007. The economics of hunting, fishing, and state park visitation in South Dakota. This story was originally featured on the South Dakota Game, Fish, and Parks website. Outdoor and wildlife-associated recreation is more than a tradition. They are also significant contributors to the nation's economy. Each year, millions of people participate in these recreational pursuits across the country, and their spending supports the economy at all levels, from shops and small communities to major manufacturers. Nationally, outdoor recreation, that is camping, fishing, hunting, paddling, bicycling, snow sports, hiking, climbing, and wildlife viewing, is estimated to contribute $730 billion annually to the U.S. economy, supporting nearly 6.5 million jobs. Looking specifically at hunting, fishing, and wildlife watching, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's 2011 National Survey of Fishing, Hunting, and Wildlife-Associated Recreation revealed over 90 million U.S. residents participated in wildlife-related recreation, spending $145 billion on these activities. The South Dakota Game, Fish, and Parks has historically relied on estimates from the national surveys to determine the economic effects of wildlife-associated and outdoor recreation. In 2016, however, the GFP commissioned a study to specifically estimate the economic activity generated by hunting, fishing, state park visitation, and other outdoor recreation activities in South Dakota. Large numbers of hunters, anglers, and outdoor recreationists spend many days enjoying South Dakota's diverse outdoor recreation opportunities. Both residents and non-residents who visited state parks in 2016 fished, hunted, trapped, boated, or viewed wildlife in South Dakota recreated for a combined total of 18.6 million days. Participating in these activities typically involves spending money on travel, supplies, and equipment, making the annual amount of these expenditures a significant contributor to the state's economy. Collectively, anglers, hunters, trappers, wildlife viewers, boaters, state park visitors, and snowmobilers spend $1.3 billion in South Dakota annually in support of these activities. The top three activities, accounting for nearly 90% of the $1.3 billion, are hunting at $683 million, fishing at $271 million, and state park visitation at $212 million. The money spent, however, is only part of the total economic effect associated with wildlife-related and outdoor activity. The $1.3 billion spent by those enjoying South Dakota's outdoor resources has a significant effect on the state's economy, generating directly and indirectly $1.9 billion in economic activity throughout the state. This activity supports an estimated 18,000 full and part-time jobs, which provide $520 million of income. In addition, it contributes over $970 million to the state's gross domestic product and generates $83 million in tax revenue for state and local governments. Wildlife-related and outdoor recreation has long been a fundamental part of South Dakota's experience. In pursuing their passions, those who participate in these activities create a significant economic engine, supporting thousands of jobs and generating hundreds of millions of dollars in labor, income, and growth within South Dakota's economy. These traditions and pastimes are vital to the many businesses and communities in every corner of the state. Neil Gorsuch confirmed by Senate as Supreme Court Justice, a potential victory for gun rights. This story was featured on the OutdoorHub.com website. President Trump nominated Judge Neil Gorsuch to fill Justice Antonio Scalia's seat on the United States Supreme Court. He was confirmed by the Senate on a vote of 54 to 45. Gorsuch is known to be an avid outdoorsman who loves to hunt, fish, and ski. As mentioned before, Gorsuch is described as someone who can't get enough of the outdoors. He's apparently very fond of fly fishing and is also a double black diamond skier. It is noteworthy, however, that we have yet to see how Gorsuch rules on Second Amendment cases. He has never ruled on such a case, which will certainly be worth keeping an eye on. Canadian man tackled by deer. This story was originally featured on the ABC News website and was written by Blair Schiff. It happened on April Fool's Day, so no one believed him at first, but 25-year-old Kerry McCook got run over by a deer. McCook was dropped off by a co-worker in British Columbia, Canada on April 1st when he saw a deer running straight at him. He had no time to react, as can be seen in the video. The deer head-butted him and McCook fell to the ground. His family and friends finally believed that he was taken down by the deer after he got surveillance footage of the incident from a nearby inn. McCook is an aspiring rapper in a group named Rika Nation, and he told a Canadian news network that he plans to write a rap song about the encounter. This video is worth a look if you get a chance. That concludes this week's edition of the Big Buck Registry's Deer News. For links to the stories featured this week, please check out our show notes at www.bigbuckregistry.com. If you have any ideas for future topics or have questions about any of these topics, please email me at jim@bigbuckregistry.com. For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News.
Thanks to Jim Keller with the Deer News. Without further ado, here's Laura EAKIN.
Laura EAKIN, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. How are you, my friend?
I am doing great. Thank you guys for having me on.
I know that it's kind of funny, like podcasters have each other's back in a lot of ways. And
definitely.
If a podcaster reached out to me, for whatever it is, I'd listen. You know, it's not like I'd ignore that call. If I know you're a podcaster, I'm in.
Yeah, no, we definitely all have each other's backs. And, you know, anytime a question is asked, I'm more than happy to jump right in and help anybody who needs it.
That's the name of the game. Laura, tell me about yourself. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? Where are you now?
Okay, so I'm currently living on the same street that I've lived on for the last 22 years, and I'm only 28. So that's pretty fun.
No kidding.
So I live in the south end of the Salt Lake Valley. It's a little city called Draper, and it's actually exploding right now. It's insane out here. When we moved here, we spent the first night of Christmas Eve in our house in 1994. So we got to, I, of course, being 4 years old, I'm like, oh my gosh, Santa's not going to know where to find us. What do we do? Like, how is this going to work? My mom's like, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I sent him a thing saying that we moved. She was really cool about it. So that was really fun and a really fun experience. But, I've grown up in Draper where it used to be farm town. Across the street used to be a dairy farm from me. And now it's homes, all homes. Right. So Draper's turned from a, farm town, backwoods city to very suburbanized. But I've lived out here now for, like I said, last 22 years, coming up on 23. And I've met my wonderful husband it's coming up on 10 years that we've been together and known each other. So got married 8 years ago, coming up in August, and continued to live on the same street. But I didn't really get into hunting or even had a thought about going out until after I got married.
Interesting. Now, why is that? That's a fascinating subject matter.
Well, I grew up with hunting being a part of my family. My dad loved going out, would take my brothers out. One of my brothers tend to like it a little bit more, but so we hung out at camp. And, I have to tell you this story because to me, it's hilarious. Okay. So we have this friend who I swear looks like somebody who is famous. And early morning, everybody's getting up to go out. All the guys are. And I groggily look over and I look to my mom because I'm sleeping next to her and I go, why is Garth Brooks in our trailer? And I swear I wasn't more than 8 years old. And she goes, what? I was like, Garth Brooks was in our trailer. And she goes, that's chat, honey. Go back to sleep. So, so I remember being out at camp in trailers, in the mud, freezing our butts off in the snow. Like, when I think about hunting, I think of cold, huddled up in a heated trailer playing board games because I did not want to go out there to get muddy because my mom didn't want me to get muddy.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So, guys would all go out. We'd come back to camp and we'd hang out there. But I do have a distinct memory of being 12 years old and my dad had shot an elk and they were able to get it off the mountain whole. I don't know how, don't know why, but it came home whole. And he was in the garage and had it strung up by a forklift and was skinning it from a forklift in our front garage. And I was like, can I jump in on that?
Right.
So I, at 12 years old, was skinning away, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever, but it didn't catch on to me until after I'd met my husband, and we spent our honeymoon out at elk camp.
The honeymoon at elk camp. All right. This sounds like a relationship that's going to last a while.
Well, I didn't realize that. So we go to camp, and, you know, the man's supposed to plan the honeymoon. And I was like, what in the world are we going to do at elk camp? It was pouring rain by the time we got there. And we delayed our honeymoon by a week because opening weekend was the next week. So he's like, we're going to stay home for a week and then we're going to go. And he's like, pack for like camping. I'm like, why am I packing for camping? He goes, we're going to go to elk camp for a little bit. And I'm like, wait, what? You're taking me on my honeymoon to elk camp? So we get up there. It's pouring rain. We can't get our tent set up in time because it's just a total catastrophe. And we end up sleeping in the same trailer as his aunt and uncle almost the entire trip. So I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm a newlywed and I'm sleeping in a trailer with other people and freezing my butt off. This is awesome. So halfway through the week, we end up switching trailers to then sleep with his brother-in-law and share his trailer. And so we didn't really get any alone time at elk camp.
I was going to say, where's the honeymoon part of this?
Yeah, there wasn't at this point in time. Like, I was like, what is happening here? Why? There's no alone time here.
Right.
I'm stuck at camp with all of his family and our dog. And his uncle had our dog trained to the point where he would tap the top of his beer can and my dog would come running up to him to try and share his beer with him. I was like, this is an awesome trip. This is just so amazing. You know, this is like my first time as a grown up at a hunting camp. And I have my husband's uncle training my dog for beer. And his uncle doesn't have any teeth. So we would go to eat these T-bone steaks and all of a sudden his steak was gone. And we're like, dude, what happened to your steak? And he goes, oh, I don't know what's happened to it. And my dog Moose is like laying on the ground, like gnawing on it, trying to get it. And he goes, oh, whoops, it must have fallen off my plate. Like, you're such an idiot. That's like not even how that happened. So it was quite a fun trip.
So what's your opinion of this at this point? You're painting a picture, but what's going through your head?
Going through my head is literally, what on earth am I doing here? This is supposed to be my honeymoon. I'm supposed to be spending time with my husband. And he's out observing because at this point, he didn't have a tag. This was technically his second year going out to observe, to get like a lay of the land and to understand it and to help his uncle. And he didn't even have a tag this first year. So I'm sitting there like, okay, you're literally going to sit in a tree stand and you don't have a tag. So you can't exactly harvest anything to bring back. And all your uncles are out there. They have tags, which at the end they gave us some meat. But, you know, it was like, okay, something's got to give here. So by the time we ended up actually leaving, I was like, hey, now what? And he goes, oh, we're going to Steamboat Springs tomorrow. So then we went to Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and had ourselves like a little honeymoon for a couple days. But it was a rough go for that first week trying to get there for me.
So,
and I just
was that the script you had written up for yourself?
No.
Okay.
Not at all. I was like a typical girly girl at this point, and all I could think of was, let's go someplace with a beach. Let's go like veg someplace. Or he's always wanted to go to Whistler, Canada. So I'm like, let's go to Whistler and just hang out, you know, go see some sights. And I got sent to elk camp to hang out with his family while he went to go sit in a tree stand.
So this kind of paved the path for this podcast adventure that you went on, I would assume. Like this, what year was that? What year was your honeymoon?
We got married August 8th of 2009.
Okay.
So that definitely started paving the way because, you know, my husband didn't necessarily hunt before we started dating. So my dad only asked my husband like 2 or 3 questions when he first came over. And one of those is, do you like guns? And do you like to hunt? And I was like, yeah. Like, okay. Dad, seriously? Like, those are the questions that you have for him? So
I think that's probably the same questions I'd ask of my daughter's fiance too. But okay. All right. Continue.
Well, it wasn't even fiance yet. Like, he had gotten to my house to pick me up for our first date before I had gotten home from work. So he sat around and was watching a show with my parents, and those are the questions that my dad asked. I was like, okay, thank you, Dad. Like, I appreciate your concern that I'm going out with this guy. And, you know, something that people don't really realize is that my husband is 4 years older than me.
Okay.
So at this point in time, in July of 2009, or no, it was 2007, excuse me, I was 17 and he was 21. So, you know, my husband didn't realize it at the time, but I still had my whole senior year of high school to get through by the time that we met. And that was a really fun, interesting conversation to have with him as he realized that I wasn't going to college classes, that I was actually going to like high school classes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And he likes to tell people that he raised me. So,
all right.
Yeah. And that he raised me to get into the hunting realm. You know, like he's like, no, I raised her so that she knows where the priorities lie. Like, dude, don't even. We're not even going to go there. So when that all kind of started to fall into place after the honeymoon, and I really realized how much he was really loving this and he was bringing home meat, I was like, okay, now I'm getting it. I'm understanding it, but you're still spending a lot of time away from home. And I wanted him to be with me most of the time. And I was greedy that way, you know, as a young newlywed, you know, you stay in that newlywed stage for like the first year and a half. And it's like, you're just always gone. And then I went to school our second year of marriage. So then I was always gone. So it worked out really well for him to go out and do whatever he wanted to do, whether it be scouting or putting up trail cams or whatnot. So that second year of marriage really solidified for him that hunting was going to be a high priority.
So he was kind of a new hunter when you first met? Okay. And then,
yeah.
So he got the bug, like so many of us have had. And I mean, I could think back to when I first started hunting. It engulfed my life. Like it's all I could think about. So, and today I think about it as frequently as I used to, and I certainly engage in it a lot. But there are other things that kind of push it aside a little bit. You know, it kind of bumps into it, and I have to make a decision. And sometimes the decision is not to go hunting, which drives me crazy. But sometimes that's the choice I have to make.
Jeez, you sound just like my husband.
Yeah.
Because most of the time, he lets that decision fall on me, where I'm like, no, I really need you here. But honey, the mountains, they're calling me. I'm like, but honey, your kids are here, and you need to spend some time with your kids. So it's a fun little battle that we have about it.
Yeah. Dusty and I have talked about this, where we recognize that there was a time not too long ago that Dusty got a little frustrated, where he sold all his gear. And I was concerned that my hunting podcast partner might be just my podcast partner. He got that frustrated for some reasons that I'll let him explain. But that in the frustration of the moment, we discussed how much time we can and have and often do spend away from our family, our kids, and somehow decide that hunting is a priority.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Hunting's a priority, but there's times that you just get frustrated. I mean, I don't know if most hunters are like myself, but, you know, you put all that time, money, and effort into a place, or you get told that they've given permission to somebody else, and that they're taking over that piece of property, and you're no longer able to hunt there. And it's just like, are you kidding me? And it just frustrates you just because the effort that you've put forth to, you know, not only create some habitat for whitetail and get on a nutritional program. I mean, it's like raising beef here in Ohio. If you give them the right supplements, they're gonna be amazing. And I'd done all that for years at a particular place and got booted out of there. And man, it made me sick to my stomach. It just upset me that bad that I just said heck with it and got rid of all my stuff. And I was done for a while there. I went probably a month and I was out. I mean, I was bummed out, burnt out, just mad at the world, and Jake can vouch for that. I was on the bottom of the creek and water was getting deeper.
Yeah.
But I got my head back on right and come up with the backup plan, and, you know, did some digging and found a great place to hunt, and very fortunate this year. I killed a great buck and just, you know, got lucky, and it's all back to normal now. But there's times where, you know, you sit down, you think about all the time you spend in the woods, and you think about your kids. And I mean, there's some days, is it worth it? That's a question that pops in your mind. And then you're like, man, it's just a way of life for me. It's what I enjoy. It's what I thoroughly enjoy. It's what I love. love my kids and family, but also I love being in the woods and hanging out and just enjoying the great outdoors and the freedom we got to hunt. And it's just amazing what the woods can do for a soul. And if you're not a hunter, you'll never understand. But that's that's something that once I finally come back out of being down the ditch line for a while there, I got back up on the road and straightened it out, and it turned out really good. But there's times where you're like, man, what happened? What did I do? Could I have done something different? Could I have done this? Could I have done that? And really, there's nothing you can do about it when you don't own the land. You just move on and try to do bigger, better things with your what you got in front of you.
Right. Yeah, I had not seen you that frustrated over anything up until that point.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It really is. It's I don't know. To me, it's just sickening. It's just like, man, I've wasted all this money on material and as far as feed and mineral and supplements and time and gas running back and forth out there in my pickup truck, and it was just like, wow, what in the world? What, I'd never seen this one coming. Like, it just hit me like, oh my gosh, I just lost one of my best spots ever. And it was just like, my gosh, I started calculating all the money I've spent in this place, and
right.
Chainsaw blades, hinge cutting trees, and just, oh my God, just make you sick, man. It's just like, what in the world? Why do I do all this? Because look what happened. I got kicked out of this place.
Got kicked out of this place, and then you use the words, think of all the hours you spend away from your home and your wife and your kids. And it's like, I don't need that anymore.
Right. I mean, it just bummed me out so bad, and you start thinking about everything. It's just like, man, it's all good when you're on that great spot and you're seeing big deer on trail camera, and you're just like, man, this is going to be a great year, and this is going to happen. I'm going to kill this buck I've been after for 3 years now, and I'm going to get him finally. This is the year. I've got him coming in. He's locked in on where I'm at. I know his pattern. I know his moves. I'm always one step ahead of him, and man, I lost it. And it bummed me out. And I just started thinking about all the stuff that's all the negatives to hunting. And you can say what you want, but that time away from your family and kids that's priceless to me. But when you love something and you have a passion for something, not expect it, but you hope that your family members will support it and let you do it. And I'm very fortunate that my wife and my kids my daughters are starting to see the outdoors, and they're getting the value of it, and they're enjoying it. And I'll always enjoy it no matter what. There's times that obviously I get frustrated at it, but it just, I'm blessed to be where I'm at and doing what I'm doing. And there's, from one experienced hunter to another, it's going to get you one day. It's just going to get you like, man, what in the world am I doing? Why do I spend all this time out there and all this money, all this effort, and then it just all fails? And it bums you out, and it makes you start thinking about things that really that they matter, but in reality, it's all part of. If you're going to hunt, you're going to have to take time away from family. And my girls are starting to finally be of an age that they can go out and participate and hunt and enjoy it with me. But I was bummed, and I guess it's part of the journey.
Right. So your husband made it clear that hunting was going to be a priority in your relationship.
Yes, very.
What was your reaction to that?
Oh, goodness. Well, at first it wasn't so great. He was spending more time out there. And at first I was like, what? Why? When are you going to be home? I just want an answer on when you're going to be home. And he goes, I can't tell you what time I'm going to be home. And I was like, why not? Why can't you give me a time frame? And be like, oh, I'm going to be home at dark 30, which is now like a running joke at our house, dark 30. And I'm like, fine, whatever.
I know what time that is. Yeah, I'm very familiar with
that. Yeah. I am becoming very, very familiar with it now. So, I was like in this stage of almost like denial that he really wasn't out there doing all this other stuff, and that he was just being selfish about being out there. And, kids have come. We have 2 little boys now, and they're still really young. My oldest is about to turn 4, and my youngest is 2.5. So they're still really, really young. And about 2.5 years ago, literally just before I had my youngest, I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't have you gone all the time. And if I'm going to have 2 kids running around the house, I physically cannot do it anymore.
Right.
I need you here. You need to be here. I'm going to need your help. And well, it was shortly after that I said, no more. As soon as this kid is good to go and can stay with people, I'm going to join you. And he's like, what? Yeah, you're not going by yourself anymore. You're going to take me and you're going to teach me everything that you're doing, because if that's the only way that I'm going to be able to spend time with you, so be it. And then if that's the only way that these kids are going to be able to spend time with you, so be it. We're going to make it happen.
Gotcha.
And in that process, I found that I really like learning from other women.
Okay.
Because they don't look at you and they have patience. Men, I'm sorry, men. Most of the time, I love you, but y'all don't have patience worth a nickel. So I would prefer learning from some of the local women that are here. And actually, that's about how my podcast came about, is that, I came up with the name about the time that I was going through this stage of, he's just being selfish. I can't believe he's out there. So I was like, hunting widow. That's what I am. That's what I'm always going to be. I just have to suck it up and deal with it. And so I came up with the podcast premise. And after that, it was, I'm going to talk to these hunters' wives and we're going to bash our husbands. And that's what it turned out to not be. It turned out to be me talking with women and understanding like where they came from, some of the tips that they've used in the field, things that they do that make it easier for other women, and how to inspire more women to actually get in the outdoors and not do it exactly the way that I did, and saying, I'm going to go with you. So that's about how it started to come about.
So you set the premise that you're going to interview women. Obviously, the women the women you're going to interview to bash your husbands, that did not pan out.
No.
But you still have the premise where you're going to interview women, but it's not, by the looks of your catalog, that they're all lady hunters.
Yes.
And
so
highly skilled.
And it's been amazing to talk with these women. It's turned into I'm hoping that it's not just my journey that is being found or shared there. That there's other women that are listening to it that are like, oh my goodness, I can do this. I can do this. It's not as hard as sometimes the men make it seem. Because sometimes I feel like men try to make it a little bit harder than it really is, just to kind of discourage women a little bit. So they're like, oh, fine, I won't go. But, and I'm not saying that all men do that. And I don't think men do it intentionally, but women, we're like, we want more women to get into it. We want more women out there, because my theory is that if you can get a woman involved in the outdoors, whether it be hunting, hiking, whatever it could be, you get that woman involved, you're going to get the whole family involved. Because she will do everything physically possible to pack up those kids to get them out on that mountain. They're like, okay, we're covered. We got extra clothes. We got snacks. And you have to get the kids snacks. Like, you can't just do like strictly camping snacks, because my husband's version of snacks and my children's version of snacks is totally different. So you have to take their version of snacks. You have to be prepared for meltdowns. You have to be prepared for everything physically possible. A poopy diaper. You have to be prepared for, a skinned knee, whatever it could be. But that woman is going to take every precaution into account, or every scenario into account, to get everybody back on that mountain.
Right.
So if you get a woman involved, you're going to get the whole family involved.
So your compromise to your husband was not that you were going to just let him go, but that you were going to join your husband in the hunt, and that you were going to become a hunter alongside him.
That was the plan, is that, you know what? Show me why you do this so that I can do it. So that I can figure out, if this is where I'm meant to go on this path. If I'm meant to be a hunter, or if I'm meant to be a gatherer. I'm not in a way of like, gardening, because I kill plants by watering them. So it just doesn't ever really work out that way. But I mean, in like gathering my family around, or am I supposed to be out on that mountain? Am I supposed to be taking these steps to harvest our meat for my family instead of being that woe is me wife?
Yeah.
And it's come to be that I do okay on the mountain.
I always thought it was interesting that in nature, if you look at the predatory side of nature, where you look at lions, for example, where the females do most of the hunting and the males sit there and basically sleep 18 to 20 hours a day and be lazy. But somehow in the human predatory reign, there is almost a reversal where it's been male dominated. I mean, granted, we're probably not we're not lions, but it is interesting that there's a reversal here. There's a role, but I don't see where there is an advantage, especially with today's technology and tools. Guys don't have advantages in the woods as hunters over women. There never has been an advantage. There just seems to be a mindset.
Yeah. No, and it's funny that you say that, because I would definitely not be a lioness. I am so new to this game and new to the process of it all. And, I don't think I could hunt all day. Yes, I've been out on my trips and I'm working into it slowly, but actually sitting down to think about being out all day kind of makes me feel physically exhausted. Just kind of the thought of it.
Right.
But I know I have to do it if I'm going to get out there and I'm going to become that hunter and, make that ethical shot. I know I'm learning to understand what it takes. And, my husband is definitely the bigger hunter in our family, but he has been teaching me and he has been helping me. And even though I gripe at him all the time and be like, dude, talk to me the way that these women talk to me. And then maybe I'll understand what you're trying to say, because you're not explaining it in a way that my brain is clicking into. So then we have to kind of backpedal a little bit. But, he is definitely that high-end avid hunter, and he is definitely teaching me along the way, as well as these women in these podcasts that I do.
Okay.
Another thing, too, is with women, and if any woman has shot a bow and finds that their elbow is slightly double jointed, they know this feeling. And if you're pushing out on your bow, and even if your wrist is technically at almost that 45-degree angle, women's elbows flip out. So their inner elbow, like that inner crease, points straight up to the ceiling. That inner elbow corner, if you were to let go of an arrow and you weren't in the right spot, you'd completely whip your arm, and it would totally turn you off from archery for the rest of your life. Nearly. Not all women, but I was close enough to saying I'm done at this point of the first time that I raked my arm, because I drew blood when I raked my arm.
Right.
So
it's painful.
It's extremely painful. And I thought that I understood what I was doing when I went to go shoot a bow, and I had no idea. So I completely slapped my arm and had a lot of problems there. And he was trying to correct it in his way. And he's like, no, you need to do it like this. You need to turn your hand. You need to do this. And at the time, we were just backyard archery shooters. And since then, he's been in and out of an archery shop a lot more. And I've learned a lot from women that are actually there that are like, hey, understand that your arm needs to be slightly bent just enough to get your elbow out of the way. You still have that spot in your hand, and learning where that spot was supposed to be in my hand. Because hearing my husband tell me that was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I totally get it. But actually having somebody be like, no, somebody who had shot a lot, and actually Lindsay Christensen, who I've spoken to multiple times on the podcast, she's got 3 separate episodes. She was the one who helped me a lot in understanding my form and how to correct my form and make it the way that it needed to be, alongside as one of the shop shooters that we used to shoot with out here. And he helped me as well, but I couldn't take the advice from my husband and apply it.
Interesting. Yet, was it the same advice, or was it just delivered in a different way?
I think that it was probably the same advice.
Okay.
But, there's this thing, and I think men have it, and I think women have it too, where there's that certain tone that when we hear it, we just kind of tune out.
Right.
Right? So my husband will tell me all the time, I don't remember you telling me that. And I remember distinctly telling him what the situation required. He goes, I don't remember. It must have been in that tone. I'm like, dude, you can't just use that as an excuse every time. So I think that women have that as well, that sometimes when their husband's saying something, we're like, yeah, okay. And we think that we're taking it in, but we're not. So hearing it from another woman who may have delivered it differently and not in the same tone as your husband, which you normally sometimes would tune out, gives you the content. And you're like, okay, that's registering. Now I can continue.
Gotcha. Okay. So of the people that you've interviewed, and you've interviewed 60-something, I think you've had 60-something episodes.
Yeah, I've just released my 64th episode.
Which is fantastic. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
It's 100 is quite a milestone, but each and every one of them getting there is just, they're a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
They're these giant stepping stones.
Every single interview I've done and everything that I've done to get to this point has been an amazing learning experience. And these women are fantastic. You know, they have given some of the best advice that I've been able to use out in the field.
What are some of your favorite interviews that you've done?
Oh, gosh. You had to lay that one on me?
I'm going to.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well,
yeah, are there just some little tips that stick out in your head more than others? They're like, wow, you know what? That was really, really smart, or that was a really good tip.
Yeah, you know, I learned a lot in the first ones because, you know, when you're new to recording and you have to listen back over, you go, why did I say that? Why? What? What's happening there? And but you can take it into context as yourself, right? And I absolutely hate listening to myself talk. So when I have to go back through and edit stuff, I'm like, ooh, okay. So that was a good learning experience in the first ones. And you know what? And this is going to be such a cliche answer, but I can't pick out any of my favorites because I've become friends with every single person that I've talked to.
Right.
And I love them all. So saying that I loved one podcast more than another is really hard because you've got, for example, I spoke with Tawny Lynn. And Tawny Lynn was on Naked and Afraid, and she actually ended up going on to 2 different episodes. Mm-hmm. And we talked to her about that, but she didn't exactly have a hunting background. She has a tactical background.
Right.
So talking to her about the tactical field and the things that she did, and then jumping into being covered in over 2,000 bug bites and taking that first shower and how painful that was, I mean, totally flips the paradigm.
And I'm with you. And I don't have necessarily a favorite show, but each and every one has something special in it for me.
Definitely. Definitely.
And there are definitely some tactics or strategies that were explained to me or us or everybody listening that it's stuff that is triggered a knowledge base that I knew I didn't have. And it wasn't until I heard them say that made that particular show special. And those are some of the techniques or strategies or styles of hunting that really stuck out.
Yeah, you know, and I really like hearing everybody's background. So, for example, I've had a couple people on who started out eating meat as kids and stuff, and their families did a little bit of hunting or did no hunting. Then they go off to school, learn about factory farming, and completely cut off meat from their diet. And then the only reason why meat gets reintroduced is because they reintroduce hunting game, harvest meat, and that's it.
Right.
So they've got people that are like that. I've had guests where they have been around hunting their entire lives and may have faltered in and out of it and then really got serious in it in their late teens or just recently. And the people that I found that, have really gotten into hunting a little bit later in life has all been within the last 10 years. Women in the outdoors field in the last 10 years has completely exploded.
Definitely. Yeah. It's the highest surging populace in the hunting industry from what research has told us.
Yeah. And I see it every day, coming across my Facebook feed or my Instagram feed, all these women who are taking the initiative to get out there or like, you know what, I don't feel comfortable hunting big game. So I'm going to start out with fishing. And then they become this fishing omega that's just catching them and understands the fly or understands what bait to use on what day for what fish. And just the knowledge to see in these women grow is awesome to experience from the other side.
Gotcha. Do you listen to other podcasts?
I do a little bit. There's a couple. I definitely listen to your guys' podcast.
Okay.
And
thank you for that, by the way.
Oh, of course. I have a few that I really like, and it's some of them are hunting and some of them aren't. I really like the Knocked On podcast because I am more archery focused. I do shoot. Like my first big game harvest was this year on January 7th with a rifle. That was my first harvest ever. So, I mean, I do partake in the other realms of hunting, like the other seasons. But I am more archery based and trying to understand marketing a little bit more. I listen to the Gary V. The other one that I just absolutely love is hardcore history. It's Dan Carlin's.
Dan Carlin, sure.
And oh my gosh, I love listening to it.
Okay.
And listening to the historic backgrounds. I could never be a historian, but I love listening to history. And I love listening to like that storytelling of books.
What about the length of Dan Carlin's podcast?
So like I said earlier, I live at the south end of the Salt Lake Valley. So for my drive into work, depending on which work I'm going to, because I have 2 different jobs other than podcasting, I'll listen to them on my way there. And so it's about 20 to 30 minutes in the car going to work. And then one of my jobs, I drive to remote locations. So I'll listen on my way there as well. And then on my way back and then head home. So some days I have more time in the car and some days I don't. So if I have to cut them off in the middle of a story, I get kind of sad and kind of angry inside because I can't finish it.
Right.
And there's so much more length to it that I'm like, I just want to keep listening. Like,
right.
I want more. But definitely those time slots where I'm like, oh, okay, this one's going to be a good lengthy one. But then I look at it like an audiobook. You know, some of the books that I've listened to on Audible are like 24 hours. So you have to definitely find the right time to sit down to have those plugged in. Or when I'm cleaning, that tends to be the other time when I'm plugged into everything.
Gotcha. Okay. So why start a podcast? I see the hunting aspect of it. You definitely, that seemed to be a pretty big subject matter in your life, but why start a podcast over like a blog or a vlog or, a video blog?
Well, my husband had decided that he wanted to do one. And at this point in time, I was like, podcast? Dude, no, that's ridiculous. Like, who listens to podcasts? And he goes, everyone. I'm like, obviously not, because I don't. So it was this fun little game that was happening between the two of us where I had no idea what a podcast even was. And that's when my eyes were opened up to the world of it all and, understanding what actually went into a podcast. Mm-hmm. And then, so he got all the gear to do it. And then he got completely overwhelmed with some work that he was doing. And on top of that, with all the hunting that he was doing. So he's like, I just don't have time to do it. And I was like, well, then I'll start one. And he goes, really? What are you going to do? I was like, well, we've already talked about, me talking to other hunters' wives. And at this point, I talked to a couple friends. But we would just talk about our husbands, normal girl banter. But I was like, what if I did it in a different way? So that's where things kind of started coming into play. And then it turned into talking with women that actually knew about hunting and knew what was going on, because I kept seeing all these antis hitting these women and it was making me really angry. So, my first actual episode was with Jessica Amos, and she's now Jessica Terry, but she had some guys show up at her house being like, I can't believe that you do this. Blah, blah, blah. And she goes, well, do you want to come in for breakfast? And he goes, no. And she goes, are you sure? We're having dog. And he got all offended and ran off. Well, she doesn't even have a dog. And so she was just being facetious about the whole thing.
Sure.
And so I was like, that just really made me upset that people were doing that. So I wanted to talk to these women about it, but then also kind of take away tips and tactics that they had to try and get myself to get out into the outdoors.
Right. Dusty, do you listen to podcasts?
Oh yeah, not too often, no. A lot of time goes into a podcast. Therefore, I kind of cut that into my podcast listening. Creating a podcast and recording podcasts and setting up guests and all that. It just seems like that I put enough time into a podcast that I don't have time to listen to one. But and getting into Laura's, not to get off subject, but I think that women need a female host to relate to. And I think that it's very beneficial with what Laura's doing with your podcast, that is creating a space for women in particular to go and get their education on hunting, just like me and Jay do for our listeners. And just thinking about that while you guys were talking there, and it's an amazing thing that, not only do the guys can come hang out with Jay and myself, but the female hunter can go hang out with Laura over her podcast. It's pretty cool if you think about it.
It is cool. And we've had lady hunters on our show, but I think our audience is male dominated. You look at our Facebook page, you look at our listenership on our podcast, we're like 75% guys. So there's definitely something like gals don't want to listen to us talk about deer hunting. Maybe for the same reasons you didn't want to listen to your husband tell you how to shoot a bow. It might be that. I don't know.
It could be. It's and I don't pretend to be anything that I'm not. So for me, you get what you get. I am very open. I'm very straightforward. I don't feel that I'm like unrelatable per se, is what Dusty was saying, that I have a normal life outside of podcasting and outside of hunting. Like, I'm a mom of 2 boys who has to work, and, I do everything I can for my family. And the podcast has helped with that and has brought more to it, to where I have like-minded people coming together and like-minded women who are on the same page and who want to help other women learn and have these experiences for themselves. So having that has really helped to kind of build up everything else that I've started to put together.
It makes sense, because it's almost like a band of brothers or a band of women that can relate to the same situation, as far as being employed, being a mother, being a hunter, a bow shooter. You guys have something all in common, and it's almost like an unbreakable bond of people that you can relate to and almost live the same life as each other. But there's different techniques and tactics and skill set levels, and there's all these different variations where you can help each other, where it could be, how do you shoot your bow and work at the same time, and keep a house. And there's women that has discovered things that give them that 10, 15, 20 minutes and go out in the backyard and shoot their bow. And it's just something really simple that they've changed up in their household process that gives them that little bit of free time. And I can see it. I can see where women are attracted to the podcast, Laura, of yours, that are looking for assistance in how their daily functions incorporate hunting and bow shooting and gun shooting. And they're so busy, but yet maybe there's something that you guys could talk about on the show, and I'm sure you have, of how do you do this, how do you do that, how do you do this, how do you do that. And I can see where it could be really strong for a female audience.
Yeah, and kind of going along with that is we try to help other women find their mold. Sometimes they haven't found it yet, or they don't like the mold that they're in, so they're trying to get into another one.
Right.
They're trying to make a leap into a different way, whether they're jumping head first or they're taking, one toe at a time.
Right.
At least it gives them some stepping stones. And another thing with it too is that everybody that I talk to is not in one state. So you're hearing from women who are all over the country, if not the continent, because I've had people from Canada come on, and I've had women come on who talk about their experience in Africa and things that have happened to them in Africa. And that, to me, I didn't understand everything that went into Africa. And Cecil the Lion situation came up literally right as I was starting my podcast. That was a whole new thing for me, understanding exactly what was going on and why was everybody up in arms? Because to me, hunting was hunting. It wasn't anything different. And I couldn't understand why everybody was losing their marbles over a lion who's been threatening villages. Like, it wasn't coming across to me in a very cognitive way, I guess is the way to say that. But, getting some of these women on who had been to Africa, I was like, oh, okay, now I'm understanding exactly what happens in these hunts. Right. Now I'm understanding, oh, this is how this is going. And these are the bans that are now being made because of that, and how they're affecting things and how they're affecting people and how they're affecting the economy over there. So
that's where your podcast branches out. You start, you've grown a trunk to your tree. Now you're putting branches on it, and you're branching out and getting information. And, not only are you hunting your educational podcast, you're starting to put all these things together, and that's to Jay and myself, that's priceless. When we can branch out and educate further and bring more to the table, that's what a podcast is all about.
Yeah, and it's been amazing to learn it so much from these women. Like, I take it as a great honor to talk with these women and, take in everything that they have to offer when I'm sitting there just talking to them. And then they tell me, thank you so much for letting me come on. Like, I really appreciate it. I'm like, no, really, I appreciate it. It's a great deal to me that people allow me to take their information and to share it with others. There's no higher honor than that.
Right. It makes me think, I just posted a recent picture on Instagram of we was at the 2017 SHOT Show there, and had a lot of high-end hunters that were standing in this particular picture. And you surround yourself with talent, you can conquer the world. I mean, it's no question about it. And Laura, you're willing to put in the time and the effort to find the talent to come on and talk with you, and not only be able to talk with them, but educate yourself and your listeners further on any particular subject that you get into. And like I said, that takes you from just being a regular old hunting podcast to being educational, and that there's no value in that.
Yeah, SHOT Show's a league of its own.
Right.
You go to SHOT Show and your socks are blown off before you even walk through the door, of the main hall. So it is crazy out there. But so many amazing people that show up there and that are so like-minded. And I met some amazing people out there. And there were others that were there that I didn't even run into. I didn't even run into you guys out there, which was just amazing to me that we didn't touch bases in some facet while we were there.
We all show up in a main article written by Michelle, and we never actually see each other at the show. That's the crazy part.
I know. I'm getting that framed, by the way.
Me too.
I am this is the first time I've ever been published. I was like, this is going on my wall.
Absolutely.
I have to get this done.
I can see it. It's still sitting in the pile where I left it when I got home from SHOT Show in my to-do list. But it will be framed by the end of the year.
Yeah. No, I got home and I realized after Michelle had put up a post saying, hey, these people, I spoke with all these people, go check it out. And I'm reading through it. And I was like, she goes, sends me the link, right? And I'm looking at it online and I'm reading it and I'm like, this is awesome. I go to my bag and realize that is the only SHOT Show daily copy that I picked up the entire trip.
Right.
Of SHOT Show. It was the only one that I had picked up. So I have my legitimate copy in my hands and I didn't even realize it.
Right.
This is awesome.
I think we picked up about, 30 of those and started handing them out to people.
It's pretty cool to have your podcast and our podcast and Mark's podcast all, published in there in a little article. It was real neat. Yeah,
it was crazy to me because she asked me for a picture and I'm like, okay. And I didn't realize that this was going into the SHOT Show daily. So I sent her the one that I have. I have purple and blue hair in this picture, okay? And I'm wearing orange and white Skull Candy headphones.
Yes, you do.
It couldn't flash even more than it does. And I'm looking at this picture going, I did not realize that this was going to be seen by all the people of SHOT Show and that I look like a hooligan. I have a beanie on. I've got my headphones on. I got blue and purple hair peeking out of the bottom of it. I'm like, oh my gosh. Had I realized where this is going to be published, I would have gone and taken a better picture.
Sometimes that happens, and we wish we could have taken it back. Have you ever said anything on a podcast that you wish you hadn't said?
All the time.
Okay.
And then I realized, you know what? It was said in a genuine light, and somebody will learn something from it. Whether it be something that I said and I was like, oh my gosh, stop it. Just don't say anything more about that. Because I've talked about my experiences through hunting, and sometimes, I'll have guests that come on that don't really know my background. So I feel like it's a little bit redundant about talking about some of the experiences that I've had, but that's just because I only have a year's worth of knowledge or of physical experience being out there.
Right.
And so I go back and I talk about, losing both of my big toenails from a hike or freezing my butt off in a hammock while we're up on that hike. Thought I was going to die on that hike. I call it the most traumatic experience of my life. And then I go back and it's like, oh, well, the first 3 times I went out on my hunt, I got sick. Extremely ill. The first time I got food poisoning. The second time I'd gotten motion sickness from being up in the tree stand and a storm was blowing in. And the third time I just it's like my body knew what I was doing. So it's like, no, we're just going to get sick now because we know what's coming.
Right.
So I was like, what is happening with me? My body knows that I'm going to go on the mountain. So it's like, wrong spot, and decides to freak out. So that's always fun.
So from your first episode, which aired back on December 23rd, 2015, it sounded like you were getting ready to, or planning an elk hunt at that point. You were kind of excited about something to come.
Yes.
What has transpired in your hunting life since that first episode has launched?
The most traumatic experience of my life.
Okay, do tell.
So that first hunt that I was talking about in that one, I was going out with my dad and my husband, and we were going up to this one area, but we only had half a day to hunt. So it wasn't a fruitful endeavor to a point where I didn't even see any elk. And it was a whole lot of hiking. And I was just, by the time I got home, I was feeling rather discouraged. My dad and my husband and my brother were all ranting and raving about this place that we were going to go. It was amazing. There's always elk up there. We didn't hear one bugle. We didn't see anything. We found one thing of fresh sign, and that was it. We saw a moose. And I was like, what in the world? I don't understand. You guys said that all this was going to happen. So that first hunt, I was feeling really down and really discouraged. And as time went on, I was like, okay, that was last year. Water under a bridge. I've got to get back out there. I have to take my hand at this. I have to try. And by the time tags came around, I drew, I got an over-the-counter general archery elk tag. I drew out a rifle buck, and I drew a depredation tag for a cow elk for the later of the year or the late season. So I was like, okay, I have to be prepared for this. I have to be ready. I have to make it count. And in my hike that was just to set up a trail cam is the one that I called my most traumatic experience in my life. So I have sports-induced asthma, and I have tried really hard to get it under control and stuff. And so I always have my inhaler with me. Well, it was a cold enough night that I wasn't really having a lot of asthma problems. I just realized that I was really out of shape by the time I was trying to hike up this hill. I was like, holy cow, dude, what is going on here? I was like, I thought that I was going to be having asthma problems. No, I'm just really not in a good condition. So we're hiking up and find this little clearing, and my husband's got hammocks in our packs. It's the first overnight hike I've ever done, and it's the first time I'm away from my kids since I'd had my youngest. So I was kind of freaking out. Okay, I'm within cell phone range. If something's wrong, my mom can call me. If something's wrong and we need help, it's there. So we hiked up, we set up our hammocks, and the temperatures dropped that night to the point where I did not sleep a wink. And I chattered the whole entire night. My mouth wouldn't just calm down. I couldn't sleep. Had no padding underneath me. And now I know anyone who's going to sleep in a hammock and you think the temperatures may drop at the night, you need some form of insulation underneath you.
Right.
So, because you just have the breeze blowing underneath you the entire night, and it just keeps cooling you down, and your body heat can't regulate. So I'm sitting in this hammock thinking I'm going to die on this mountain because I'm going to freeze and it's just going to be horrible. So my husband wakes up at 2 a.m. because he's cold too at that point. And he goes, put your camo back on. And I was like, I don't want to touch that. It's freezing out there and I'm cold in here. So it was a learning experience. Being like, no, you need to start putting on layers. You need to start bundling up. You've got to get something between you and the bottom of the hammock. I'm like, okay. So I start bundling up. I think I slept for maybe 20 minutes in the early morning because it finally started to warm up. And then he goes, okay, let's get up. Let's go. And I'm like, how are you chipper right now? You seem so happy and gung-ho. Let's go. And I'm like, I'm freezing still. And I just barely fell asleep. No, we got to go. We get going, and I'm still really out of shape. And we're early morning hiking up this hill, and I feel like I'm going to die again. And then he's like, don't worry, the rest of it's downhill after the top of this peak. Start going downhill. I'm like, okay, cool. Start hiking around a little bit, side hilling. We have a decision on where we're going to go. We're going to go set up our trail cam on this wallow. So to get there, we find a game trail that does this major switchback. And there's fresh sign everywhere. There's elk, cow. Oh my gosh, see, I'm getting tongue-tied now. Cow, elk, poop. There's fresh poop. There's fresh bull poop on our trail. And I'm like, sweet. The likelihood of us seeing something is high. Something's down here. We're going to see it. So we get down there, and I have walking sticks. And we're literally just above the wallow. And I put my walking stick down, and the ground gives way to the wallow. And I go feet overhead, butt overhead, with my pack on, with a pack, a full bag of Big and J's in my pack, through a patch of stinging nettle. And I landed sitting up with my boot being 3 inches away from a wallow. So
Gotcha.
I was just thankful that I didn't roll again. At that point, I was like, okay. And then all of a sudden, instantly started itching. So I was like, get the wipes out, wipe me down. I'm itching. You have to get this stuff off of me. So we finally get me wiped down, cleaned up, and functioning again. We find a way that we really want to get over to the main trail. After the trail cam set up, I finally have come off of the adrenaline of falling down a hill.
Right.
And we're like, okay, this is where we want to go. So we start side hilling through this brush. And I have never side hilled through anything like this. It was horrible. It was major scrub oak, and there were natural rose bushes.
Ouch.
So yeah, it was painful. So we finally get across. We find like somebody's little honey spot, that they've like put all their gear to come back up, a bunch of water, bunch of storage stuff. And we get to like this main breezeway where this opening was, and we could either go up to the trail that we knew would take us down, or because Google Earth and Google Maps is so awesome, it shows a game trail that we can follow to get down. Well, took my husband's advice and we decided to go down this game trail, and he goes, this will be quicker. I will never follow that statement ever again in my life because it was not the trail that we were on, and it switched back and forth across this little creek. And we get to a point where we're finally getting close to the bottom, and then it says private property, do not cross. And at this point, I have stomped my way down this mountain. I was so angry that we didn't go the way that we knew, that we were going a new direction, and my feet kept slamming into the toe of my boots. So they weren't strapped on tight enough. So I'm slamming my toes. And I didn't realize that there was anything really majorly wrong with it. I was just frustrated and my feet hurt. I was achy. And so we take this extra little trail off to the side from this private property one, and we pass a bee's nest, and like the wasp bee's nest, right? So it's like the weird, soft outer coating ones. Mm-hmm. And my husband goes, okay, there's a bee's nest right here. Don't touch it. Well, there was one directly next to it that he had bumped. So I start walking behind him, and all of a sudden we're getting attacked by bees. I get stung really bad on my leg, and I'm like, just get me off this mountain. I'm hysterical at this point, right? I'm like, I have to get to work. I'm dehydrated. I just want to get home. Like, it was a bad mess. Okay. If anybody had seen me at this point in time, it was a bad show. Like, it was not something to pay admission for. So we're going, and we finally get to this road, and these people keep passing us. It must be some type of like rental resort property that's next to where we hunt. And they're like all waving at us. And I was like, hi, whatever, quit waving at me. Just get me down this mountain. And my husband's like, okay, you keep walking. I'm going to run down, go get the truck, and I'll drive up to you. And I'm like, good, because I'm done. So I literally stomping down this road. He picks me up. My feet hurt all night while I'm at work. I can barely walk at work. And where I work is for a radio station. So we do like all the on-site setup stuff. So I'm lifting this 50-pound easy up tent, all my equipment, and my feet hurt. And so I was cranky that night. And 2 days later, my feet weren't getting any better. Come to find out, my right big toenail had severed the nail bed from hitting the toe of my shoes or my boots. So because my feet were slamming into the toe of my boot, it was severing my big toenail on my right foot and festering the one on my left. So I had a blister underneath my toenail. I had completely severed my nail bed. And I went into my podiatrist, and he goes, oh, yeah, we're taking this now. He goes, and the likelihood that you're going to have to come back in for the other one is high. But let's see what happens. I don't want to take it if we don't have to. Because at this point, I had to go to Big Sky, Montana to shoot the Total Archery Challenge. And yeah, that didn't happen. I had a toenail removed 2 days before Big Sky. And I literally hobbled around the mountain because I couldn't put any pressure on my toe at all. Because I had just had the big toenail removed. It was super sensitive from going through so much trauma in a short amount of time. And so from that hike, just in and of itself, that's why my body freaks out now every time I decide that I'm going to go on the mountain.
Wow. And you still like hunting today?
Story, but it's still like, that is what I think of as my first real experience being on the hunt and preparing for the hunt. But I still got up and I went out there because I had tags to fill. I didn't want to have tag soup for every single one of my tags. It took me a while. It took me until my third tag. But, I made it happen.
It's insane. And you still want to do this? You still want to go out and go hunting again?
Well, this is still a learning experience. There's still room for me to possibly be a gatherer in there. But, I'm along for the ride right now. I really am enjoying it. I really enjoy being able to tell my kids, hey, this is mommy's elk. And my 4-year-old, he gets it. He understands it. And he's like, yeah, okay. This is, mommy, you shot this. And I'm like, yes, I did. Yes, I did. That makes me feel real good about myself. So, being able to share that with my family is awesome. That's
pretty cool. I hope everything goes better than that one did. But still, it turned out all right in the end.
Yeah.
And it's a heck of a good story.
Yeah. Well, and each time I've been out has a story, I was
Right.
puking out of a tree stand in one of those, in one of my stories.
Right.
I was so ill coming off the mountain from food poisoning that by the time I got home, my husband and I were sweating out fevers. And it's all definitely been a learning curve. Even shooting my elk, that was a major experience that definitely tested me and definitely tested my ability of what I can handle.
Right. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, very, very cool. I think we should get into the 10 rapid fire questions now. What do you think?
Ooh, I like that.
Number 1 hunting tip.
Ooh, good hiking boots. Make sure those suckers are laced up tight.
Very good. Is there that one particular thing that you cannot go hunting without besides your fire or your bow?
Yes, my shiwi. And I know that's going to sound really funny. It's a female pea funnel.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
Very interesting. I'm going to skip on and go to the next question. I'm not even going to ask him.
That's okay. I won't expand for you.
What's your biggest pet peeve in life?
I asked this one on my podcast as well. And I'm finding out that I'm a really OCD person. And there's a lot of things that really bug me to no end. So I could not give you one thing to be my biggest pet peeve, because I can tell you that I absolutely hate when people mix up the silverware in my dishwasher.
Gotcha.
I can tell you that I hate having my closet out of order, and tell you that I absolutely drives me crazy when people don't use their blinker on the freeway. So I've learned a lot about myself and the things that are really big pet peeves to me that I can't give you just one.
In a polite way, how old are you today, Laura?
I am 27.
What would the 27-year-old Laura, knowing what you know today, tell the 20-year-old Laura?
Oh, crime admittedly. That's a good one. Suck it up, Buttercup. This is going to be a wild ride.
That okay. You meet a stranger in an elevator at a convention or an outdoor show. What do you tell them you do for a living?
I would tell them, it depends on the type of convention that I'm at. So if I'm at a hunting convention, I tell them, oh, I'm the host of the Hunting Widow podcast. And they ask me what it is. I'd give them the quick little elevator talk about what it is. And if they ask if I do outside work as well, I'd be like, yeah, I work in an office that produces manufactures automotive it's not automotive. They manufacture industrial coatings like epoxies for sewer lines. And then I also work for the local radio stations.
Gotcha. Okay. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
I actually ate breakfast this morning. I don't normally eat breakfast. I had a berry smoothie. I also had a Mountain Dew, which is no surprise to anybody who knows me. And what did I have? I had something else with it. Oh, I had 2 slices of toast with cinnamon sugar.
Gotcha. You get your own billboard, blank canvas. You can put anything out there you want to put on it. What would it say?
I don't even know what I'd want it to say. Right now, because I'm trying to help spread the word about a ladies hunting camp, I'd probably be like, come join us at ladies hunting camp. There's one here in Utah.
Okay, that works. I say the word successful. Who's the first person that pops in your mind and why?
I don't even have one person. No, it's hard when you say rapid fire and it's like takes forever to get an answer out of me, even though I know exactly how they're supposed to go.
Right. That's what editing is for.
I know, right? Thank heavens for editing. I think this wasn't live. I look at success measured by happiness. So the first person that I would think of is my dad, because he has been very successful in every endeavor that he's done, and he's still happy, and he is always happy.
Very good. What's a day in your life look like?
Normal day. Between 7 and 7:30, my children decide to wake up, and I try to let them sleep until 8. If it's a day that I'm not going to work, we literally will veg most of the day. I try and get a little bit of cleaning in. We'll go outside and we'll play with the dogs, and things don't really get cracked down on a time limit until nap time. When nap time comes around, that sucker's planned, because that's my editing time. So nap time is my time. Then dinner time rolls around after nap time, because we go back outside and play a little bit more. And that's when we eat, bath, and time for bath, clean up, bedtime.
Very good.
And then more editing.
What does a hunting day in your life look like?
I wish I could say sleeping in. Like, that's like my biggest thing that I wish that hunting would allow. Going back to my elk hunt, typical day for that was knee-deep snow, hiking up the mountain, which nobody thought I was going to get out of the car. So it was a good thing I got out of the car that day. 30 elk coming across the ridge, as we can see from the parking lot. We move over to where we're going to actually park, hike up, finally get to the elk that we want to see around 1 o'clock, make the harvest shot at about 1:30, 1:45, hike over to her, and then the work begins. I didn't even get home until after 8 o'clock. And all I said to my husband was, I deserve some tacos. We're getting tacos on the way home.
Very good. Well, that wraps up the 10 rapid fire questions, Laura. Thank you for the great answers. And man, I do recall that you said that you had some rapid fire questions for us.
I remember that as well. You said you have some questions for us, which is a twist.
I do, because I also ask rapid fire questions for my podcast. And, I have a feeling that these are going to be different than the ones that you have. So the first one that I have for you guys is, if you were on Naked and Afraid, what one item would you take with you?
Fire starter.
I'd take a knife.
Those are good answers. Look at you guys.
So I stole that from Laura Zira.
And that, I did listen in on that. That was a good one.
That was a good one.
What is something that you've always wanted to do but haven't?
Elk hunt. There's one.
Hey, come out to Utah. We gotta fix that right now.
I heard you have a good population out there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going with kill a black bear, something I've been hunting but not completed yet.
I like those. Those are good ones. When you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Heavy equipment operator.
I think I want to be a farmer, actually, back in the day. Until I started watching the guys on TV go fishing, then I want to be a professional fisherman.
I like how you guys are all outdoorsy. If you had an airplane ticket to go anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Alaska.
Utah. To go elk hunting.
Now you're just sucking up.
Where would I go? Anywhere in the world. Yeah, I think I'd go to Alaska. That place seems to be just absolutely vast and wild, and probably everything I love about the outside is it's endless.
Yeah.
Endless doses of being outside.
Yeah. All right, 2 more for you. If you were to be bitten by a vampire and become one, what age would you want to be stuck at?
21 all day long.
I think I'd go with 25. Actually, I'd go with 24 because everybody says, oh, when you turn 40, that's when you have your first midlife crisis and you start thinking about your age. Well, 25 was that for me, and I don't know why, but so I'm going to go with 24.
Last one. What is your motto in life?
Full throttle and wide open's all fun and all, but slow and steady with plenty of traction takes you places.
I like that.
Wow. I don't know if I have a motto, but I think if I did, it'd go something like, don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
Good one. I like that. The motto that I currently live by is, the more you know you didn't know.
It always slaps you right in the face, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Hard.
Yeah.
Very good.
Is that 10?
Oh, you want me to give you 10? I'll give you 10.
Oh, I
was just going to do 6.
Oh, geez.
No, I'll keep going. I got more.
I
Trust me.
think I missed count. I thought we were doing 10.
Do it.
No, that's okay. I'll keep going.
Oh, yeah, we can.
Just depends on how in-depth you guys want to go, because I got some pretty funny ones. All right. Would you rather be a giant rodent or a tiny elephant?
I'm going with elephant.
I think I'd rather be big than small. So I'm going, even though it's a rodent, I think I'd go big rodent.
If you could eliminate one thing from your daily schedule, what would it be and why?
I could eliminate the toilet. I hate in the bathroom.
That is awesome.
Answer.
I like that answer. That's a new one for me.
Bathroom. I wish there was a way that I could do the podcast and everything else that I like about doing it. And I wish I could get away from the computer. My life is just, because of the podcast and the editing and the keeping up with the show and keeping up with the social media, I wish I could just get the screen out of my life completely. But I don't know how to do that.
I think that's all our dreams, isn't it?
It has become that, I think. Whereas our parents didn't have any of these problems.
Yeah, no. All right. What is your secret obsession? For me, my favorite thing in the entire world is taking a spoonful of rainbow frosting and just chowing down on some frosting. No, I don't have any more secret obsessions, to be totally honest. I'm too much of an open book to have any. So I've had people say, like Lindsay Christensen, she watches Grey's Anatomy while she's going to work, while she's driving. I can ask a different one if you'd like.
I drive by this particular field in hopes to just see deer there, just because it's one of them spots where, like, so many people said that they'd never seen deer in this field, and we don't know why. And I'm like obsessed with driving by it, checking this place out, and see if there's deer there. I don't know why. It's so stupid, but yet it's such an obsession that I got to drive by this particular spot to see if there's deer out there, because everybody, like I've had like 12 people tell me there's no deer in this area. I'm determined that one day there's going to be a deer standing in this particular field. I'm obsessed with it. I'm going to take a picture and be like, I told you so.
I think there's one obsession I have that I don't even know that I'm doing, and I'm just kind of thinking about what do I do a lot that I don't realize that I am doing, and it's staring into the woods around my house. Like I will spend hours without really realizing it, just looking deep through the woods to see if anything's moving. See if there's a deer coming through, or a bear, or a turkey, or a squirrel. Looking for movement as far as I can look all the time.
All right, last one now. Now this is 10. This makes 10.
Okay.
If you were ever caught dead, where would it be?
Deep in the woods of New Hampshire. Probably on either a stalk or a track of a big deer.
Man.
Have we stumped Dusty?
No, I'm just trying to think. If I was caught dead, I mean, trying to think somewhere I like spend most of my time at.
Well, for me, about 7 years ago, I would say I wouldn't be caught dead going elk hunting, and yet here I am, partaking in the adventures of a hunt.
Yeah, I'm going to say turkey hunting, because, man, like 10 years ago, it was the furthest thing from my mind. But now I'm obsessed with it. It'd be turkey hunting. And the turkey.
Nice.
Hunting
That's
turkey.
An interesting answer. I did not know that.
I've never been turkey hunting, so I'd probably be caught dead there too.
I'd bet you'd really enjoy that, Laura.
It's the funnest thing.
I really want to. You know, I've really, last year I won a blind in one of the competitions from the Total Archery Challenge, and I haven't been able to take it out into the field yet. So I really, really want to go out and use it to get a turkey. And our opening for the turkey hunt comes up in May for over-the-counter tags. So we don't have a large population of turkey, but we have a decent amount. I'm definitely not compared to out east, but it's something I definitely really want to get into because I feel like it'd be such a challenge.
I would encourage you to skip the blind part, and if you can, treat it like an elk hunt.
And spot and stalk it?
Yes, in a sense. Only you're going to use their vocalizations as a key point and then approach it that way.
All right.
It will be riveting.
I'll take your challenge. I accept.
Okay. Not that the blind's bad, but sometimes the moving around and closing the gap on a bird and then setting up on it, nothing compares to that, except for what I imagine is elk hunting.
Well, I will definitely take you up on that, and I'll do some form of review on it for you to let you know how it goes.
Okay. Yeah, it's something else.
It really is. Like I never realized it till I did it, and then I was like, whatever. It's just a small bird with a beard.
Right.
If you get that small bird with a beard coming in strutting on your decoy setup and gobbling your calls, it'll make the hair stand up down your spinal cord.
I just got a chill when you said that. Damn you.
It's the truth.
Wow.
There is nothing better than hearing a gobble after you strike a slate call. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Get the visual on this thing coming into you. And if it's strutting, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
I'm excited to experience it. My only thing is I don't do snakes, and snakes come out right about now. So, my husband told me a story about somebody who had a rattler go right across their boots. And I'm like, no, because we got those out here. And, depending on where you hunt, you have to be really careful of these snakes. And I'm like, dude, no. Like, I don't know if I can handle that. They can move and they don't have feet. I'm sorry, but to me, that's just too unnatural.
Yeah, the snake's definitely a different element that you'd have to overcome. Not something that I have to deal with, but that's messed up.
It's a lifelong fear that ain't going nowhere. It's got deep, deep roots.
Different element to the whole hunt, definitely. This has been an absolute pleasure. I can't thank you enough for coming in and telling us your life story and how you got started in your podcast and why you did that and why you're going to keep doing it.
Yeah, I know. Thank you guys for letting me come on. I think it's a great opportunity when podcasters can come together and share each other's stories and talk about how they got involved in everything. And, sometimes one person's story could change somebody else's life.
Oh, for sure. Laura, where can we find you if we want to look you up social media or your podcast? Tell us where we can locate information.
Yeah, I've got the website, thehuntingwidowpodcast.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook. It's just search The Hunting Widow Podcast. Everything one big long word.
Gotcha.
Oh, and if you want to go onto Twitter handle is hunting_widow.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Laura. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys. Can't wait to see what your hunting adventures turn out to be this year.
Well, that was a conversation that I don't think I really was expecting to have. And to hear the lady perspective on hunting, and from somebody that had no intentions of starting a hunting podcast.
Yeah, it's amazing how that started out and got turned around and ended up in Laura's hands. And look at her now, Jay. She's progressing, and they're headed in the right direction for the Hunting Widow podcast.
Yeah, she's talked to some very influential people in the hunting space, and I wish her well. And we're going to be on her show in a few weeks, Dusty. So if you guys want to tune into Laura's show in a few weeks and learn more about who we are, I mean, we talk to you every single week on the show, but we don't dive deep into all those little things that you would probably reveal if you were interviewed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And sounds like Laura's going to dig into a few different things and see what's going on in our lives.
I'm a little scared, though, because she said, is there anything you don't want to talk about? I mean, are you guys open to whatever?
It'll be all right. It'll be fine. We'll manage, and I think we're pretty confident in what we talk about, so we'll get through it like any other conversation.
That's right. And if you want to see how much we really screw up behind the scenes, you should join us on Facebook Live on Thursday nights at 8 o'clock. We're doing our little half-hour television show featuring podcast guests that we've had over the years, and we're bringing them back so you can see them and see where they live and see where we're podcasting from inside Big Buck Studios, both Ohio and New Hampshire. So that's been a fun little thing we've been doing, and we're going to keep that going. And we'd like to hear some feedback from you, Jay or Dusty at BigBuckRegistry.com. Let us know what you think about the Facebook Live feed. We're starting to get a little more traction, kind of like how this show started, Dusty. In the very beginning, we a little bit at a time, and before you knew it, we had quite a few people tuning in.
They once they figured out who, what, where, when, and why,
started
doing really good, and people started joining in with us week after week. And I tell you, it's just progressed from the beginning to now, and we're going to keep pushing on and try to produce and make a better show every time.
I'm kind of intrigued by the viewership that has been growing week over week, and we'll see where we can take that. I do like being able to revisit with all of our old friends from the podcast. Pretty cool.
Absolutely. We can't thank you guys enough for joining us and tuning in and going live with us on Facebook and all the interaction on social media. And thank you for that.
We deeply appreciate that. Dusty, do we have a Chubby Tines tip of the week this week?
Yeah, it's
the Chubby Tines tip of the week is sponsored by Morse's Sporting Goods. Firearms, used firearms, bows, used bows, located at 85 Kentucky Falls Road in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. Give Jim a call at 603-464-3444, morsessportinggoods.com. Your dollars go further in New Hampshire. There's no sales tax. Morse's Sporting Goods.
Right dead center of the time of year to get these food plots in the ground, Jay. So right now I suggest that if you're going to do a burn down, Roundup, Buccaneer Plus, whatever you're going to do as far as killing off the weeds in your food plot area, now's the time to get them sprayed and give it that 14 to 20 day die off period where you're going to see the green go to dead brown, and once your weeds get dead, then here in a couple of weeks, I suggest at least 14 days. Let that chemical really take care of that weed. And once you get a good kill, then it'll be time to work your ground and get ready to insert whatever foliage you're going to plant. So right now's the time to get out there and put the Roundup on, or if you're going to do a burn in your field, now's the time. Man, get the fields burned off and use your Roundup, or if you do fire burn, you can do that also. But just be careful that you play it safe when you're doing fire burns. And but now's the time, Jay.
All right, very good. Well, then I'm going to try to get on that myself. We have a new sponsor coming on, which I think will apply to this little tip you just had. We'll share that next week.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, great, man. It's been a great show. I really enjoyed talking to Laura, and thanks to all our sponsors for sponsoring the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast, and thanks to Advanced Takedown Tree Stands and Covert Scouting Cameras, Morse's Sporting Goods, and the Euro Hanger. It's a great lineup of sponsors, and all products that are in this lineup are all products we believe in. So please help them out if you are fans of the show and you need any of those products. Give those guys a chance first. They would appreciate it, and we would appreciate it as well. Well, Dusty, I think this has been a great show. Let's wrap it up here, man. We'll come back next week and do it again. Where can we find you when you're not here in the studios?
Shoot me an email, dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. You can look me up on Facebook, Chubby Tines Outdoors, at Chasing Antler on Instagram and Twitter. Jay, where can the people reach out to you when you're not on the mic?
You can shoot me an email, jay@bigbuckregistry.com. And you can always give us a call at 724-613-2825. Leave us a voicemail. We'll try to play any of those messages back on the air. If you have a comment to make, good or bad, we don't care. We do have our Facebook page up and running, facebook.com/Big Buck Registry. You'll find all the diehard deer hunting fans to the tune of 250,000 plus. And we are on Instagram and Twitter, BigBuckRegistry.com on each of those as our handles. And you can also find us on YouTube, where you'll find any of the videos we're doing, any of the live videos. Those are being uploaded as we produce them, along with all of our podcasts. All of our long-form podcasts are produced into a pretty dry video as videos go, but that has all the audio attached to it, so you can actually find all that stuff right on YouTube. And you can always listen to the show on multiple formats, multiple forms in the podcast realm, and that would be things like iTunes, Stitcher, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, and TuneIn Radio. I think that's pretty much all the places we're covered.
Very good, Jay. Well, I'm Dusty Phillips.
And I'm Jay Scott.
And this is another great episode of the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Can't wait.